Hello, brothers and sisters. It's a new week. Welcome to our show titled Speak of Africa. For the show of today, we're going to focus on Cameroon. Cameroon is having constitutional reforms. It looks like after the long wait, the news that Paul Biya announced during his end of the year speech that he's going to change the constitution and going to come up with a new cabinet, those changes are happening now. Issa Chiroma is still a factor. He's still in Gambia. But this week, the National Assembly got new leadership. Marcel Niat Njifenji has been the president of the Senate since 2013. He has been discarded by Paul Biya. It looks like his age and his health have made him useless to Paul Biya. Similarly, Kavaye Jibril, the Speaker of the National Assembly, has also been discarded by Paul Biya. We saw this coming. In fact, during Paul Biya's campaign in Marwa, the only campaign stop Paul Biya had during the 2025 presidential election period, Kavaye Jibril made a fool of himself. He was stuttering, he could not even speak clearly, and I'm sure the Biya folks were really embarrassed the way this guy was speaking. So it was just time. So Kavaye Jibril has been replaced by Theodore Daou. Theodore Daou is now the new Speaker of the National Assembly. So these two choices underlie what we call Biya's secret way of managing the campaign. What is Biya doing here? We call this Cameroon's constitutional mafia exposed. We are exposing the 7 key to Biya's power, Biya's constitutional power. They are built on the edifice of 7 pillars. We call it the 7 keys to power, the 7 keys of Biya's power. You should have to understand, Biya's power is based on the capture of the state apparatus. And this apparatus has a pyramid in 7 layers, okay? The first layer we see is the presidency or the executive branch. The second layer is the Constitutional Council. The third layer is the National Assembly and Senate. The fourth layer is ELECAM, Election Cameroon. The fourth layer is CPDM, the political party that drives political action in La République du Cameroun. Then, of course, you have government media like CRTV, Cameroon Tribune. Then, of course, you have the army. Most people think Biya's power comes from the army. How far can you be wrong? Biya's power comes from the constitution of the country. That's the source of Biya's real power. It is this constitution which he uses like toilet paper to do and undo in Cameroon. It is this constitution that allows him to reign like a king without any challenge, without any competition. So I'm exposing what you've not known for so many years. So the new election of members of the Assembly and the Senate has brought us to start talking about the secrets of Biya's power. This secret is what I'm exposing to you right now. So it is big news now in Cameroon. People are waiting for political transition in Cameroon. But what the Biya folks are doing, they are using the apparatus of power, the levels of power, to play games, to propagate Biya's stay in power. And now people have been waiting for political transition in La République du Cameroun. Is it going to come? It looks like Biya himself is managing this political transition. Some people are saying that Biya is not coherent, but his entourage, his clan, is looking for ways to perpetuate the rule of Biya, the dynasty of Biya. They want to extend it to the next generation. And of course, a lot of people are jockeying for position. Paul Biya knows this. As much as some people say he doesn't know where he is sometimes, but he is a political animal. He knows what he wants. So when you look at what is happening, people are waiting who is going to be the next president of Cameroon? I think that's not really the important question. The most important question is, how is the next president of Cameroon going to emerge? Well, the next president of Cameroon is not going to be appointed by key people in Biya's entourage. He's going to be appointed by Paul Biya himself. The next president of Cameroon is not going to be elected by the people of La République du Cameroon. They will keep singing the blues. Biya will make that choice himself. So that's the reality. Biya is running things just like a mafia. That's what is happening in La République du Cameroon. This election, which we showed you in 2025, revealed a lot of stuff. Issa Chiroma won the election. But did he succeed in governing the country? No. Because Biya designs the programs for the country. He controls the people who run the program, and he gives benefits to them. So it's like a three-stage algorithm in computer programming. If else statement, Biya designs a program for reform in Cameroon to benefit him. Biya controls the people he selects to run the programs. Biya gives benefits to these people. This is political patronage. If else, if the three of the above statements do not apply, repeat loop. So it is like looping in computer programming. After the three stages, design, control, benefit, you jump back to the first element, design. Or you have the seven pyramid stages of Biya's key to power. Then you ask yourself, who are some of these guys who have been elected as leaders of the Senate and the National Assembly? Theodore Daou is actually related to Chantal's mother. I hear he comes from the western region of Bangui. That's where he comes from. So already, what does this tell you? It tells you that Chantal is part of the inner circle in the choice of a new president. Then, of course, Ray Buba, Abubakar Abdullahi, the Lamido of Ray Buba, is the new leader of the Senate. Of course, you know that the new leader of the Senate is the person who presides over the organization of elections for a new president. So if somebody is going to succeed Paul Biya, the groundwork is being laid for this political succession. The Lamido of Ray Buba is Biya's key ally. Biya uses him for his political strategy of maintaining order in the north of La République du Cameroon. So, Issa Chiroma is from the north. So with a political ally such as the Lamido of Ray Buba, Biya can manipulate the political chairs in the north, Gaundere, Marwa, and Garoua, all those three big regions. He can run things for Biya because he's a Biya ally. You see the way things are falling. So with him now, things are falling in place for Biya's succession game. So Biya is winning. So we're revealing insider information now. Then you have to understand, how did Biya capture power in Cameroon? I'm going to explain. 1962, you had a federation. That's the system of governance. You had West Cameroon. In 1962, the two systems of Cameroon, West Cameroon gained independence already. East Cameroon also gained independence. But the two Cameroons were governed as federation. You have a federation. You have Southern Cameroon, which was run as West Cameroon. Then you have East Cameroon. Aijo was the prime minister of East Cameroon. Foncha was the prime minister of West Cameroon. So eventually, Foncha became the vice president. In 1972, Aijo decided to change the federation into a unitary state. So this gave more power to the president. In 1982, Aijo resigned and Paul Biya took over. Initially, Paul Biya was prime minister, then he was appointed by Aijo to succeed him. But now the post of vice president is also going to be created from the insider information we're getting from Etudi Palace. The post of vice president, Foncha was vice president during the early days of Cameroon, okay? But we're going to have the post of vice president again. So this post of vice president, a lot of names are floating out from what I've gathered. My guys at the presidency are telling me that there are two lists actually for the post of vice president. One list has Ferdinand Gongo as a leading candidate. On this same list, they have the name Frank Biya. Sometimes people confuse the name Frank Biya and Frank Hertz, who is actually the son of Chantal Biya. Then on this same list, you also have the name Paul Motaze. So those are three names we've seen on the first list. Then there's list number 2. With list number 2, what the Biya regime is trying to do is to float another balloon. If, for example, the Biya folks think that by appointing Frank Biya is going to create a lot of chaos in the system, they want to look for some kind of security guard. Initially, they will bring an Anglophone and make an Anglophone the vice president. After a few months, say 6 months, the Anglophone will resign. Then a Francophone from Betty extraction will take over the ruling of the country. So this is like a backup plan. Plan A, Ferdinand Gongo, Frank Biya, and Louis Paul Motaze. Those are the 3 candidates on list A. Then you have list B, where you have Anglophones as candidates for president. But initially, they're going to become vice presidents. And the first vice president we see on that list is Philemon Yang. He is trusted by the Chantal Biya camp. Those people, they call them the Nanga faction. The Nanga Euno faction. They are all with Chantal. Ferdinand Gongo is part of this faction. So they are thinking that they will float the idea of an Anglophone vice president. When an Anglophone becomes vice president, then there will be a backroom deal where the Anglophone would give power over to Frank Hertz, Chantal's son, or the Anglophone will give power to Ferdinand Gongo. That's the plan. This plan is in the works in the background. This is backroom politics, okay? It's not democracy. So the people are just using democracy as a veneer. But what is really happening behind closed doors are secret deals. Philemon Yang will become vice president. After 3 or 6 months, he will resign, and a Francophone will take over as president. That's the game. So which means Biya will resign, then Philemon Yang will take over. Then the second candidate is part of the plan B. Paul Atanganji has also looked at the choice of some new candidates on the Anglophone region. But Paul Atanganji is not going to be president. The person who is going to be president is Peter Musonge. He is also on a list. And on this list, Peter Musonge is supported by the Bulu camp, where Motaze falls under. Mvondayolo, Motaze, Frank Biya, they are all in this Bulu camp. So the next president will come from this area. But first, Peter Musonge, who used to be prime minister under Paul Biya, his name is now on this list to become vice president. Then after he becomes vice president, he will resign as president and give power to a Bulu person. He can give power to Paul Motaze, or he can give power to Frank Biya. That's the plan. Then a third name is Paul Chung Elong. Paul is now the assistant secretary general at the presidency of La République. He's not getting along with Ferdinand Gongo. So he is also part of the Bulu camp. The Bulus are thinking that he is a trusted person. they can use him as a fall guy. Once Biya resigns, Paul will take over power, then hand it now to somebody who is close to the Bulu camp, either Frank Biya or Paul Motaze. So that's the plan. So what's going to happen? But we need to tell you that we need to look at these instruments, the way they are set up in La République du Cameroun. Okay? First, let's look at the way the power pyramid is organized. Okay? First, you have the executive. This is where Biya's power really comes from. As a chief executive, he can do and undo. This is a presidential system. He uses the constitution. And when we talk about the constitution, you remember La Constitution Constipée by Lapiro de Banga? If you've forgotten, Lapiro and his people and a lot of Cameroonians were against the reforms that were supposed to be done to the constitution to remove term limits so that Biya can run as president forever. For this, he paid dearly, he was imprisoned, and eventually he was killed. After he left jail, we knew he was a finished man. It didn't take long, he came to the United States and died. So Lapiro de Banga is a martyr of Cameroon Constitution. So on this show today, we want you to know that Lapiro de Banga is a martyr. This Constitution of Cameroon, especially the one of 2008, which removed term limits, is actually the toilet paper, comme on dit en français, le papier hygiénique après usage. This toilet paper is what Biya uses. He can do whatever he wants to do with it. No, he can reign without any competition. That's what is happening. So he does this because he has that executive mansion and the power enshrined in this executive system. Okay? So the system is what makes it possible for Biya to do this, and as a chief executive. Then, of course, you have the Constitutional Council. Those who do not know much about the Constitutional Council saw the way it worked out during the election of 2025 in October. You saw what happened. Issa Chiroma was sidelined by this Constitutional Council. Okay? Clement Atanga, a Biya's crony, and I hear one of Biya's uncle, was the one who was presiding over the Constitutional Council. They validate the results of the election of 2025. And of course, they were bragging openly that they frauded and they made Biya the victor. So you can see that how the Constitutional Council helped Biya stay in power. Then of course, similar to the Constitutional Council is Elecam, Election Cameroon. Elecam is the body that organizes elections. And of course, who is Elecam? Elecam is appointed by Paul Biya. Abraham, a guy from Manu, and here is the one who is the leader of Elecam now. But all those guys, the governors, the prefects, the sous-prefect, they are all part of the Biya network. So they make sure that only Biya wins the election. They will stuff the ballot boxes. This time, they were not able to do it well because they did not anticipate that Issa Chiroma would emerge victorious. The person they were counting on was Maurice Kamto. So they decided that the Constitutional Council should ban him and declare him persona non grata, so he could not run. So Kamto could not run, so they thought they had paved the way for Biya to cruise to victory easily. But as they say, man proposes, God disposes. Kamto Maurice was sidelined, but Issa Chiroma emerged from nowhere and caught the fever. He was popular everywhere he went. It was like God has come down to make him the leader of La République du Cameroun. But people are forgetting that the Biya system still exists. They made it impossible for Issa Chiroma to run and win. He ran, but they stole the victory from him. Now he's languishing in Gambia, and people are talking about his eventual return to La République du Cameroun. But how can he return to La République du Cameroun if he doesn't cut a deal with the Biya government? That's the problem. Next, we've talked about the National Assembly already. Chantal is now in this game. They have removed Kaveh Jibril. They have removed Niet Jifanje in the Senate. They have made room for 2 new people. Abdoulaye Abubakar, the Lamido of Rebuba, is the new Senate president. Then Theodore Daou is the Speaker of the National Assembly. So this is another layer that Biya uses to position himself so that he can run in perpetuity. Okay? So everything else that you see is just for show. Elections are just for show. Then what about the CPDM? Well, the CPDM is the patronage machine that is used by this Biya government. For helping Biya's agenda, you have to be rewarded. And the CPDM machine is used to launder money. If you want to benefit from the Biya system, you have to participate, do work for the Biya regime. Then the CPDM makes sure that you can gain. People talk about opposition. There's no real opposition in Cameroon. The opposition is just on paper. But in reality, only the CPDM rules the land. Cameroon Democratic Movement. It came from CNU, Cameroon National Union of Ojong. Biya gave it a new birth and christened it CPDM. So this party is the patronage machine that is used to give favors to people who do things for the regime. Okay? Then what about the government media? When you look at the media, Cameroon Tribune, CRTV, during the campaign, they were only running stuff about Paul Biya. They were not even running any programs for the opposition. So people like Issa Chiroma were really getting their publicity from social media. The people were voting for him, routing for him, but the media of the government was not giving him any coverage. That's the sad truth. But the social media coverage was so powerful that Issa Chiroma was still propelled into victory. Unfortunately for Issa Chiroma, he thought he knew the system, but now he has found out that he doesn't understand the Biya system. The Biya system is made to be unbeatable. Okay? So he won the election, but they still stole the election from him because the system is set up to make sure that nobody wins but Paul Biya. And that's what happened. Then, of course, the 7 key or the 7 pillar of Biya's power is the army. When you look at the army, the way the army is set up, the army is consisted of people who are loyal to the Biya regime. And most of the people who occupy the top posts in the army are people from Biya's Bulu tribe. Okay? You may have a smattering of some Ewondo people and some Eton people, but a lot of the key posts are occupied by Bulu people. It is by design, because Biya wants to get these people who are very loyal to him. After the failed coup in 1984, Biya made sure that only close people to him occupied key positions in the system. So you see now that all these people derive their power from the constitution. So even the army, Biya has the right to appoint army officers. The constitution gives him that right. So he uses the constitution to do and undo. So you've come to the end of this show. So let us say, what do you think should be done to address the weaknesses we see in the Biya Mafia? Well, the constitution has to be a real constitution, the way it obtains in countries like the United States and Great Britain. Okay? A constitution has to have term limits. A constitution does not have to serve anybody. But the way things are set up in a presidential regime, a president is too powerful. A constitution should not allow the president to rule by decree. If he's ruling by decree, he has too much power. So the other branches of government, like the judiciary, don't really have a lot of influence. The Supreme Court, they don't really have a lot of influence. So Biya decides what he wants, which is why even when you look at the case of Sisiku Ayoktabe, now the case has been thrown out to go back to the appeals court because they feel like the verdict that they gave them last time by the appeal court was not good. So the Supreme Court wants this thing to go back. And the trial should be done properly for Sisiku Ayoktabe at the NERA 10. And we know the visit of the Pope The Pope is visiting Cameroon on April 15 to April 18. So we know this is sending some shockwaves in the Cameroon arena. When the Pope is coming, we know a lot of things are happening. The Pope is not coming to Cameroon to return empty-handed. The Pope has an agenda, and I know he has organized with the Paul Biya regime to get what he wants. The Pope is using his credibility to come to Cameroon and resolve the Anglophone crisis. So at least he needs something to reassure the people that he has his moral authority. We are hearing that the Yoktabe and the Nira 10 are going to be freed, and a lot of the political prisoners in Kondengi are going to be freed. So that's the kind of deal that Pope Leo XIV has struck with the devilish Biya regime. So you see now that even the Pope is willing to deal with the devil. And that's what people are asking, because the Pope would go to Yaoundé, he will go to Douala, and he will go to Bamenda. Why Bamenda of all places? Well, because Bamenda is the hotbed of Anglophone resistance. That's where the Anglophone crisis is really hard. So when the Pope is coming, he's coming because he wants to provide some answers. We don't think the Paul Biya regime can fool the Pope. So the Pope has already negotiated to get something in return. He's going to give some credibility to the Biya regime, but in return, what's he going to get? The Biya regime has to do something for this regime, not just giving money to the Pope. The Pope wants to see that the crisis in Ambazonia will come to an end. That's what he's negotiating. But for us, you watching our video, we want a real constitution. The constitution should be written. Cameroon needs a new constitution. Even voting rights, human rights. A constitution has to guarantee this right, not just on paper, but in practice. In Cameroon, when you read the constitution, it sounds like the US Constitution. But in practice, it's dictatorship. So this is what we found, and we're saying a lot is happening in Cameroon. The people are still transfixed. They are waiting, playing games, waiting for Biya's next successor. So who is this person going to be? So you need to let us know who is going to be Biya's successor. Thank you very much.
Selling a service or a product? Need buyers? Use the African Nation TV as a channel to reach many viewers. Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131. Act today.